You know, we often talk about here how history has the tendency to repeat itself. And I often like to say, as a mentor once told me, history is unbroken continuity. And I think what we're seeing now follows a historic script, and it's important to say that. You know, after the Civil War, during Reconstruction, it was white Southern politicians actually labeled newly elected black leaders and their white allies as traitors. And they used that language to justify and stoke the violence against them. They created a climate and then said, oh, everybody needs to bring the temperature down, right? Similar to, frankly, I think what we are seeing today. There was a MS Now op-ed today by Zishan Aleem that really hit the nail on this and to what you all did the video for in the first place. The Democratic lawmakers were engaged in protected speech and were not calling for a violent overthrow of the government. But Trump has chosen to suggest that they should be incarcerated or murdered for expressing themselves. Trump's response, seemingly calling for a violence in response to free speech, only confirms that lawmakers are right to be concerned about whom this president would deploy the military against. It is like the president was literally making you all's point in his response. And what I'm concerned about, and Alicia brought this up on our call earlier today, is people losing sight of why you all had to do the video in the first place. Because there are concerns of our armed services, military members, folks in the intelligence community about what the president is telling them to do. PBS NewsHour has reporting that says folks in the military have sought outside legal counsel. The times that has happened, I don't want to say it's unprecedented because it has happened before, but it's happened at extraordinary times in our country when people really did question what they were being told to do.
Yeah. Look, if I were in the Navy now, I would want to hear with clarity and with conviction that members of Congress had my back. And it's a simple thing, you know, an oath to the Constitution, a basic rule of law that is so utterly American that you follow legal orders and legal orders only. That's who we are as a country. And look, for this president, it may be inconvenient to have a United States Congress. I'm sure it's inconvenient to have federal courts. You know, hundreds of federal court decisions, including more than 24 decisions issued by judges who he appointed. Some people call that a bench slap. That's a B-E-N-C-H, bench slap. This is a legitimate question and a legitimate concern. And we are being clear on the law, and that stating a simple rule of law would cause a president to make violent threats against a member of Congress does prove the point.
I want you to take a listen to what the leader of your deliberative body, Speaker Mike Johnson, had to say today on Capitol Hill about this rhetoric.
We're in a heightened threat environment, and we have to be very, I think, careful about the way we speak. It's okay to attack ideas. It's okay to attack policy differences, but you don't make it personal. I've been calling on people to turn down the rhetoric across the board everywhere throughout the institution.
Okay, so across the board, but let's start with the President of the United States turning down the rhetoric. You also had Republican Senator Majority Leader John Thune asked about what the president had said, and he said, I don't agree with that, but then he pivoted. He criticized the Democrats, including you, who made the video, quote, obviously everybody has a First Amendment right, he said. What they did was ill-advised, he added, unnecessary and provocative. I think what the word that jumps out to me most, Congresswoman, is unnecessary. I mean, we are having this conversation at the same time that the U.S. military is launching attacks with a dubious rationale off the coast of Venezuela. Their own attorneys can't truly explain why they are doing it. And to the point you and others were trying to make, there are service members who are being asked to carry out those missions. They are not being given a clear legal rationale, and they have concern that there is legal liability. So to Senator Thune, who says that your video was unnecessary, that your message to service members was unnecessary, what do you want to say back?
In a moment like this, clarity is important, and stating what the law is. We are lawmakers living in a country when the rule of law has never been under more profound and persistent threats. So stating what the law is should never be something that is objectionable. It is not a controversial principle of law. It is a deeply American principle of law that's core to who we are. The public has trust in our military. The public has trust in people whose business is public safety when they can count on the rule of law trumping everything. And we are a government of laws and not of men, and that is who we are.
How does it feel in the House now, particularly with Republican members who are consistently, without fail, with knee-jerk repetition, playing stuff like this down, minimizing and actually trivializing the impact that these words from this president in this matter and in other matters. We recall the president calling for the execution of General Milley back in 2023. So this is not something that's outside the bounds of what we've heard or seen from this president. Yet and still, you have to go to work every day with people who you sit across the aisle from who don't give a damn about what happens to you and your family, as long as it's not happening to them. Because the moment they get that threat, the moment they think some leftist organization is coming after them, oh, they're going to scream to high heaven and want the world to stop to deal with it. But here you've got folks like Tim Burchett saying, and Dan Muser and Troy Niels downplaying what the president say. Burchett saying, oh, if it's treason, if the law calls for that and the law says they're committing treason, then the law stands.
Respecting the Constitution and going to Congress to actually authorize the use of military force. None of this would be happening if Congress actually stepped up and honored its role at this very moment. And I think that's what some of my former colleagues were speaking to there.
Well, and we spoke with Chrissy Houlihan last hour, who was one of those Congress members in the video, and they didn't specify any particular actions that they believe this administration's taken. That is illegal. They, as you point out, were just speaking the facts of what every service member should be doing, and that is following the law. Sarah, you worked in the first Trump administration. What is your reaction to how the Trump administration is handling this, the president specifically, and what does it say about the state of our politics right now?
Yeah, I think the gaslighting coming from this administration is mind-boggling, but not surprising. Watching the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and others defend this is absolutely insane to me. I mean, if this was any other president, we would be having conversations about the 25th Amendment if they were calling for the opposing party, members of the opposing party, to be hanged. And instead, she flips this over on how, well, they're inciting violence. And to me, it looks like the president is the one very clearly inciting violence here. And we've had a lot of conversations recently in the state of our politics, and especially in the aftermath of the horrific death of Charlie Kirk, about the need to tone down the rhetoric in this country and dial it back. But instead, the president is the one who keeps continuing to just ratchet it up. And I think that it's really shameful when you look at the Republican lawmakers. You played some clips of their responses and them sane-washing this. And they say, oh, well, yeah, he shouldn't have done that. No, you should be very clearly condemning this. And no matter what party you're on or what party you're a part of. And so it really does speak to how we are so divided as a country and how Trump has just normalized this type of rhetoric and desensitized us as Americans that this is acceptable, because it's not.
Yeah, Speaker Johnson wasn't in those clips, but we did play his remarks earlier in our last hour, and he actually defended the president and took issue with the video from those Democratic lawmakers, saying what they said in that video was wildly inappropriate, saying it was beyond the pale for them to put out that interview, or that video, I should say. Other Republicans have tried to separate themselves from the president's comments. Some have tried to dodge responding altogether. Congressman, what is the responsibility to speak out on this?
These people are lying. I didn't see it. I don't know anything about it. I've not looked at my phone. I've never met a federal representative who does not check the news every 20 minutes.
Democrats have turned the tables on Trump with regard to law and order issues. And for a long time, it hadn't seemed to work. Democrats have always pointed out, or at least the good Democrats have pointed out, the hypocrisy of Trump. But often voters just didn't respond to that. I was like, oh, Trump pretends that he hates the elites, but he's a literal New York billionaire, or at least he pretends to be a billionaire. He's certainly very rich. Trump pretends to be a man of the people, but he lives in a solid gold, tower, right? And on and on and on. But it just never worked. Trump complains about law and order, but he literally launched a violent coup and then pardoned the coup, the coup thugs. But it seems like right now it's actually connecting because of the stuff around Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine and all that, and Trump's potential involvement, or at the very least, Trump sort of being a passive bystander while these awful things happened among his buddies, at the very least, right? And that seems to have triggered something. And it seems like right now, as Trump does that, but also threatens Democratic members of Congress, they're able to effectively take up the mantle of being the more pro-law and order side. And so you have Democrats leading the charge, not alone. Some Republicans were with them, like Massey and Green and whatnot, but Democrats leading the charge on holding sickos to account, saying we're going to use federal law enforcement, the DOJ, we want to do all that, to hold the island boys to account for what they did to those young women, right? And what people like them still do. The Republicans don't want to do that because as much as they're law and order, they want to protect the rich and powerful even when they do vile things. And also, now they're saying, we've called the cops on you, Donald. It's literally, if you go to multiple outlets are talking about it. Democratic Congress people have literally called the police on Trump for his recent threats. They've called federal police in and around the Capitol on Donald Trump. And so for the first time, I think, honestly, Democrats are able to make the credible argument, and voters are buying it, that they are the more pro, law and order party, because Donald Trump only believes in law and order that protects billionaires, even if kids and innocent people get hurt.